Welcome to this week's Talking Codswallop. Actually, this is an intro part to an episode that we have already recorded. So, I am Gemma.
I'm James.
You are James.
I am. And you are Gemma.
I am. And as I alluded to a few seconds ago, we were actually guests on a podcast. Well, it's a YouTube channel rather than a podcast. And it's for our friend Dre Daniels, who is a legendary comic book man, isn't he? He's very cool.
He is. He's very cool. Very good as well.
He is, yeah, definitely. And he has got a YouTube channel called Brutal Planet Comics, which, if you want to see the video version of this podcast, go and sort of do a little search for Brutal Planet. Oh my goodness. Brutal Planet Comics. There we go. I'm glad that's not my YouTube channel because I'm not doing that very well, am I?
But you pulled it together in the end. That's the main thing.
Indeed I did. But yeah, so, you know, if you want to see our absolutely beautiful faces and James's red nose that I allude to in the episode, I
cannot comment upon the fact why I have a red nose. You have to tune in to find out.
Yes, you do. And you also seem to have got my Gemma-isms there. You know, you weren't able to get your words out properly.
Inability to speak properly.
Yes, indeed. It's not good, is it? It's not good at all. Yep, when you're trying to be a podcaster.
One of them days.
Yeah.
Normal service will be resumed, I promise you.
Yes, hopefully next week. Well, we'll see, actually, because you never know with this podcast anyway. But yeah, the reason why we chose to release this as an episode is because it's kind of got our origin story to it. So it kind of tells all of the history of where the name came from, and, you know, the path that we went through to sort of get to where we are today. So, yeah, I thought it was good because especially as we've got a few more salty tadpoles to kind of jump on board here. And also for the old ones as well, the lovely, lovely original ones. And just to give them a little recap of how it all began and whatnot. So I've got a frog in my throat, so there we go.
Yep. So basically, we're on talking to a man who's involved with comics, and the great thing is we have got our own superhero comic style origin story in this episode. We
do, yes. I'm not quite sure what James is alluding to, but I'm sure we'll find out. Are you going to elaborate or anything?
No. Damn it, people, tune in.
Okay, well, even if I don't know that's amazing then. So, well, in that case then, I don't think we need to sort of carry on talking much longer, to be honest, James, but yeah, I hope that people really enjoy this episode because we had so much fun actually doing it, didn't we?
It was an absolutely brilliant episode, so I would recommend everyone to tune in and listen to it because it is very... Not only have you got us on as wonderful guests, you have an exceptional host in Dre.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yes. And it was quite funny when he put his lights on for his... you know, so he had YouTube lights to make his, make his complexion look perfection. Yes. Oh, complexion and perfection.
Yes.
That did make us laugh, but that was off camera, or off recording. So I suppose, I don't know if I should have said that, but you know, oh well, I did. So there we have it. James, what are you doing?
I'm listening to you. I'm letting you get your point across.
Oh, I just feel like there's a couple of dead airs there.
Well, you can use your wonderful, what do you call it? You know, it'd be good if I could remember words because today I really can't. Your good editing, that's it. Editing, yes. Editing to create wonderment and remove any dead air and issues from the recording.
I certainly will, yes. So all of James' bit is getting the cut out.
Yep, just going to be you talking to yourself. Oh, what did you think? Then you have to fill it in going, yeah.
Right, let's stop wittering on, James. I think that we've been talking enough codswallop for this intro. I have been Gemma.
I have been James. We have been talking of Codswallop for the intro, but we cannot ever talk enough Codswallop in this wonderful episode.
No, definitely. Yes, so this is us, the future selves, that is checking out right now, but we are going to hand over to the wonderful Dre, who's going to do his little jazzy bit, and then he's going to introduce us. And before we get introduced, I laugh. In true Gemma fashion. So, yeah, we'll be back next week for more tomfoolery and normal moaning and, what else do we do, James?
We just try and keep you all entertained and happy.
Yes, we do. So, yes, we'll be back next week, with a new episode. But for now, enjoy this one. Bye-bye.
See you later.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Brutal Planet Comics. I'm your host, Dre the Brute Daniels, and welcome to another episode of the Indie Corner, where I sit down with everybody from the independence community, writers, artists, directors, producers. Doesn't matter if you're in the game, I want to talk to you. So we have some special guests from across the pond. They are the hosts and co-hosts of Talking Codswallop, a wonderful podcast. Give it up, everybody, for Gemma Williams and James M. Stafford.
Hello.
Hello,
What
good evening. I like the fact you got the M in there. You got my name spot on. Perfect.
And what does the M stand for, James?
That'll be giving it away.
Ooh.
Give away far too much. We'll just say magnificent.
Ooh, I like that. And now we're getting somewhere. Oh, Jim hating. But it is so good to sit down and talk with you guys. It's been a while since we've chit-chatted. For those that don't know, I was on their podcast a month or so ago, but it was a whole lot of fun. Yeah, it was a whole lot of fun. These guys are great. They're great interviewers. Interviewers. English is hard. They're really, really good. They're fantastic. But before we jump into all the great stuff that you guys are doing on your podcast, let's just get to know you guys a little bit. Let's just get a little origins going. Gemma, just tell everybody about who you are and how we got here.
Well, oh my goodness. It's always a tricky question, isn't it? Who are you? I don't know, with regards to, I've always been like a quite fun, bubbly kind of person, and a bit of a stress head at times, I'm sure. James will probably tell me that I am. Or not so much now, but I used to be. And with regards to, I'll probably go into the podcast rather than myself, to be honest, because, I do talk about myself, but I don't know what to say.
So, I'll give you a lead there, Gemma. I'll help you out, my friend. What part of the UK are you from? Like, have you always been there? Like, what parts were you from and grew up at?
Yes, so I'm from Dorset, which is the south coast or the southwest of the UK. It's right at the bottom of the UK, and I usually say, so that most people outside of the UK can kind of grasp, it's about 2-3 hours away from London, a bit further south. So that kind of gives people, an idea-ish of where I'm from. And we're typically called country bumpkins because we are in the country and we drive our combine harvesters.
Ooh.
Not really. Although there are quite a lot and they are frustrating. And yeah, the town that I live in is it's quite a quiet little town. So and I've lived here all my life. Okay. So
Sweet. I like that. That's a nice humble beginnings. Yes. I love it. That's a fine origin story, Gemma. I'm gonna be writing that in my next comic. That's gonna be your origin story. I'm gonna make you a fair lass. It's gonna be pretty dope. It's gonna be awesome.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. James, my buddy. So, tell us, what's your origin story, James?
I just want to point out one little thing Gemma did miss, that she does in her spare time skin hamsters. Because if you look at the little microphone she's got in front of her, you look at it and you think to yourself, well, that's quite an interesting little furry muff thing she's got there. It's a skinned hamster.
Well, I might just now point out then, because there's always banter between me and
Yeah.
James, and that's what makes the podcast. He's not been snogging Rudolph or doing cocaine. He has just got a cold at the moment, so that's why he's got a red nose.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but
Get him, Gemma. Get him.
I think, to be honest, they're either going to think, like we were saying, a major cocaine problem or something by the fact that I'll be sniffing throughout most of this interview. It's not a Donald Trump sniffing thing, I promise. So my origin story. I am originally from Manchester. I grew up... See, it's a difficult one to describe where I grew up because it wasn't Manchester. But if you try and describe what it was to anybody... It's in the countryside and it falls into like 3 different areas. So to actually describe where it is, for people across the pond in other areas, it'll mean nothing. Now I live in North Yorkshire. So if any of you have ever seen or heard of a program called All Creatures Great and Small,
Okay.
it's that kind of area out in the lovely countryside. We do have the same problem that Gemma pointed out, which is tractors. And not combine harvesters, but tractors for us causing lots of travel problems. So that's kind of like my origin story. This is partly where I live, is where some of my family are from, but it's a lovely countryside area. Did you want to know more about me as a person?
I would love to know more about you as a person, James.
Okay, so study-wise, I have a degree in business and marketing, which sort of ties into what I do for a living, but doesn't. But one of my real areas of interest, which is where my lovely... See, I'd say co-host, but she's the creator. She's the brains behind the whole operation.
you can call me a co-host. It's all right.
We'd say, I mean, let's be honest, co-host doesn't give Gemma the credit. Goddess. And then she brings on, well, I've ruined part of the story, but what happened is, I love media stuff. I've always done it. Films, comic books. I mean, we've already discussed that. That's my sort of big thing that I get into. And then what happened is, following on from that, did a bit of stuff getting into podcasting with a friend, doing that a bit, wanted to get into it more. Didn't really know what to do. And the lovely Gemma let me speak to her about it. Was crazy enough to say to me, do you want to come on an episode of Talking Codswallop and talk about yourself? And then somehow, in her lovely kindness, or as we, being honest, say, she had a confused moment. She got me on as a co-host. And then, like with a lot of things, she couldn't really say, after she had me on for a bit, she was probably thinking, swear word, can't get rid of him now. We'll adopt him as a co-host. Like we said, she skinned a hamster. She adopted me as like you would a pet. A slightly confused greyhound that got lost from the track. So she brought me on. And that's how we are where we are.
Wow. Wow. Gemma, is all that true?
Well, it's kind of true.
It's all
true.
It's all true. You saw the cover up, James. You saw the cover up, like, it's kind of true. It's
I thought she was going to say the real part was the goddess part. Which was true.
I could never be vain enough to say that.
Oh, Lord.
See, the problem is that if I go against Gemma, this is the nasty side that no one normally hears about. She locks me in a cupboard.
Yep. And I throw in fish heads.
Ooh.
That's hence the logo, hold on, 2 seconds.
There you go. Throw it up.
The logo.
All day.
Yeah.
I like it.
See, proper representation.
Now that's how you get it done.
Yeah.
That's how you get it done.
Not business suit for a comedy podcast.
So that's awesome. I mean, that's great. I love both your origin stories are great. So how did this team come to be? How did y'all end up finding each other?
Actually, that's a good question because, I don't know how James originally found out about myself. I guess it was because I posted a comment or something about my podcast in Kevin Smith page because we're both Kevin Smith page fans. So obviously, James, correct me if I'm wrong, but Yeah, or he was just my stalker and I didn't realise, and I've been stuck with him all this time.
I was going to say, I love you. I love the fact you come to the guy with COVID brain fog and fatigue and say, James, can you remember anything? Yeah, I can remember it because I was on Facebook and I wanted to know more about podcasting, what people were doing. And you posted something about podcasting. And I thought, wow, it sounds really interesting what Gemma's doing. And I wonder if I can get in contact with her. I'll get a response. And she was nice enough to actually talk to me about it. I think we reached out to each other on Facebook. But this was the thing that really impressed me and got me interested in working with Gemma, but it made me think what a great person she is as well, because she actually let me ring her and have a chat with her on the telephone, and most people wouldn't do that. Now, I would say for the people out there, be very careful doing that, because you can get some real weirdos and talk to some real weirdos. Yeah, exactly this one here. Yeah, as you two both now know. You can never get free of. But it's just a great thing. It went from there, and it was the fact that, and I say this to anybody who's interested in doing podcasting, if you can get somebody to talk to who's going to have an interesting story and wants to talk about it and be articulate about it, it's a good way of doing things. And that's really how we've got to work from there. And also, you can't shut me up once I start going, because again, will be evident.
Although that wasn't always the case. In the early days, you sat back a lot more and you were quite quiet and you were quite not very outgoing in the early days. But then, because we had a third co-host called Andy, who was brought on as a...
What? Who?
It's a running joke to make it like a who. So it started with one, then had two, then had three. And now it's got like 3.5, because Andy's only a half person and we got Joanne. But yeah, so basically, yeah, so James was, he was quite in... like it was hard to get things out of you properly at the beginning. So when we brought Andy on, it was kind of like he kind of was a good person for me to banter with at first. And it kind of brought you out of your shell as well, which I thought was really good. And then obviously when Andy left, both me and you, we got this real good, recording sort of chemistry and whatnot. So yeah.
And it's a bit like, and in some respects, as strange as this sounds, it can almost be a bit of a therapy session for us, because we discuss the stuff that annoys us, the stuff we like that's going on. Yeah. So it's also useful for us to do things that way. And it's the fact that we've also kind of like, we didn't take the podcast from just being a thing where we discuss the stuff that interests us and the films and TV and the work of Kevin Smith. We did sort of bridge it out into other things. We've done some charity stuff that I've been involved with. I have a wee bit that I sometimes do where I talk about films and music, and as Gemma is pains to point out, DC comics and DC films a lot, and I will always find a link that I can to DC. I blame Joanne, who works with us on it as well. I blame Joanne for that, but
that's awesome. I love seeing like two people grow together, or a team grow together. Like Gemma help bring you out of your shell and all that other stuff. Like that stuff is cool. I think that's what makes the best type of teams, especially when it comes to something like in the media, like either like in my case writing comic books or whatever the case may be, and like you all talking with folks about the things that they're creating, comic books or movies or TV shows, or just having conversations together and to have fun with it. There's been so many times when I've seen like teams of people that are together that don't like each other and just they just try to get through it. But you guys are like blood. You know what I mean?
We hide the hatred well. I mean, it takes a lot of work. Yeah,
I was just going to say that. Yeah, we never said we liked each other.
we tolerate each other.
Hanging by a thread.
We do. No, over the last 4 years, our friendship, on a serious note, has grown really well, hasn't it, James? So.
The our friendship has grown, and also we have got to sort of we live at a big distance from each other. We've not met loads, but we've met at conventions, and that's a big thing. I had only been to a handful of sort of conventions for film and TV stuff and comics, and then once we started doing the podcast, I got to attend more of them. We got involved with them. And the other big thing I wanted to say about doing this podcast that means a hell of a lot to me, and I was thinking about this recently, is that I've met people that had real influence on me in my childhood. So I've met people who, like a guy, I met Simon Furman, Jeff Senior, who were the writers and artists on comic books that I read as a child, the Transformers stuff. I've met and interviewed people who've been in films that meant a lot to me as a child or as I got older. And if you had told me when I was a kid that I would have got to meet and interview and stay friends with some of these people as well, no way would I have got it.
Yeah.
It would have astounded me. I mean, truly, truly astounded me. And if I'd not got onto, if Gemma had not brought me into talking Codswallop and doing that, I don't think any of that would have ever happened. So once again, I've said this before, thank you for doing this. Thank you for the craziness, Gemma. Your madcap crazy thought of bringing me onto your show.
Well, the other thing is as well is that forcing you, like literally forcing you to join Twitter as well. I mean, I had to beg and plead with him to get on Twitter.
Oh,
I fought Twitter like
tooth and nail. I bet tooth and nail. I don't blame
he
you.
loves it now.
It could be scary,
Yeah.
James. It could be scary out there.
Yeah.
I understand. It's scary out there. I know. It's okay. Yeah. But that's what's up. That's what's up. That's dope. That's really, really cool. So we've grazed on a little bit, but let's talk about your podcast, Talking Codswallop podcast. Yeah, I've been practicing my pronunciation.
Codswallop.
Yeah, Codswallop. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the origin of the name. You've told me about the name before, but I want you to share, especially to us American audiences here, where that name comes from and what are the topics that you guys talk about.
Okay, so obviously we sort of touched upon it already, but I was the one who's created the podcast. So how it started originally was because I was part of another podcast called Hullabaloo, which it was like a group of us. There was 3 Americans, 1 Canadian and myself, but it was only a monthly thing. And I got really interested into podcasting through that. And but I wanted to kind of have something that was a bit more on the regular side. So that's when I decided to create Talking Codswallop. So that was, I think it was about 4 years ago, maybe a bit longer than that now. I've kind of lost track a little bit, but
it's all one
we've
long
definitely
day
had
to me. So I'm with you.
We've definitely had our fourth year anniversary and just celebrated our 200th episode as well. Well, we're a couple of past that now, but yeah. Sorry, I talk a lot with my hands. So
no, please. I like that. I like all the movement. I like the movement. I'm like a cat. I'm like.
Yes. So with regards to the name, do you know, I can't even remember how I came up with it, but I know that one day it just popped into my head because I was just thinking, like, because the origin, because for the most part, the show is how I wanted it to be originally, but because I like the idea of giving other people a voice. So how it started out, that it was myself and a guest. So whether it be a celebrity guest or whether it be a friend or whoever, everybody's important to me as long as, they were sort of known by me, if you know what I mean. And like when we had you on, it was important to give you a voice to our listeners so that they could then come on board with your projects, or at least know about you.
Yeah.
And that was the origin of the story, really, of why I wanted to start the podcast. And we had, I can't remember how many episodes in, but I know it was fairly early. Mm-hmm. I think it was a year later that James joined. So it wasn't, you've been here for about 3 years, haven't you, James?
Yeah, it's something of probably along those lines. Yeah, it'd be 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, because for me, getting into podcasting, and it's a depressing point, possibly slightly. My mother had died, and I wanted to try and do more of the things that I'd always wanted to that maybe scared me. I want to kind of grasp the nettle, as they say. So yeah, it was around that time that we would have been in contact. So I'd done a little bit of podcasting when my mother was towards the end of her life, but to do it properly, to get into doing, would have been So be about three and a bit years ago, something like that.
Yeah. So because the reason why, obviously the reason why, me and James sort of started up the podcast is because we had an episode that we did, which was Jay and Silent Bob reboot, wasn't it? And Mallrats. We did a review on the both of those films, and I kind of felt that there was a good rapport between the two of us, and I was getting to the stage where it was really hard work to kind of book people to come onto podcast with me, or I was having to do like 5 a week kind of thing, which wasn't fantastic. And it's and then I didn't have time for editing, so I'm self-taught with the editing side of things, so quite proud of that side. But yeah, and then like I think it really grew once like James became part of the show, and then when Andy came part of the show, because that was when we decided that we were going to bring in a segment which was called What a Load of Codswallop, where you can sit and you can moan about anything that's really annoyed you throughout the day. Or throughout the week.
Which is very unusual for Gemma.
I'm going to perfect
anything to complain
I'm going to perfect
about.
my English accent just for y'all. Just for y'all. I'm going to perfect my English accent because I want to say that word right. Talking codswallop. Codswallop.
I've noticed
it's like the P is hitting the top of my teeth and then it's going back down.
The easiest way to describe it, so the Americans that we've had on always seem to have a slight problem pronouncing it. So if you break it down to cods, wallop.
Cods, wallop.
Wallop.
Codswallop.
Wallop. Codswallop.
God, I suck. Codswallop.
No, you got it. I think you got it pretty well. If you just break it down, codswallop.
Codswallop. That's crazy. It's funny that we're speaking the same language, but we're not.
Yeah. I know. I've been saying that for years. It's insane, isn't it? It's like you use we have use in certain words and you don't have use.
Yeah, like color.
Yeah.
Blows
Exactly.
my mind. Like this is COLOUR. I'm like, bro, what? Take the U out. Shorten it. Help me out. Color.
Aluminium. We say aluminium. You say aluminum.
Wait,
Aluminum.
Wait, what?
We say aluminium, and Americans say aluminum.
Yeah. Aluminum is the right word.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Aluminium?
Aluminium.
Oh, no,
Aluminium.
that's ridiculous. Come on.
I mean, not to say anything, but as a country, we were here first. But,
Well, yeah.
whatever.
And we also founded your country as well, if I may add.
I had a friend. I had a friend. He was from Blackpool. He was from Blackpool, England.
Yeah.
And we got into a heated debate one day. He's like, don't you realize we own the colonies?
I bet he didn't sound like that though.
No, it was.
I don't think it.
I can't do the whole black. They got the whole. I can't do that thing. But he
I
was.
can't even think what the Blackpool accent is. I honestly couldn't think what it is. Yeah.
No.
Oh man, that's funny. Oh good God,
Yeah.
it's freaking hysterical. Before we get back on track, James, I meant to tell you this the last time we spoke, but you have the most soothing radio voice I have ever heard, straight up and down. And your pitch doesn't fluctuate, nothing. It's like, hello.
Well,
I'm
I'll just say, if you can get me some voiceover work, because I am trying, I would appreciate that. If there's anyone who wants an English accent and some English voiceover work, I'd happily do it.
Like seriously, like you could do like those audibles for like the reading like of the stories, like if you were reading like something, I don't know, something from English literature or something, whatever, I don't know, and you could just be sitting there and be like, and then she went down to the trolley and go to Pornates. And then she left. I'm like, yes, give me more of that.
Well,
that's awesome.
Thank you. Seriously, thank you so much. But if there is anybody who would like that, or you know anyone who I could be of any use to on that,
yeah,
I would love to give that a shot.
I'll definitely keep my ear to the ground for sure. I had to put that in there. That's, man, oh man, I could sit there and just listen all day. I'm like, I need to take myself a nap. James, soothe me.
I try my best. That's all I can do. I try my best.
It's great. But you guys are awesome. So as far as on your podcast, who has been? Well, excuse me. Before I ask who your favorite guests were, what?
It's you, Dre. It's you. It's you, Dre. Don't worry. It's you.
You don't need to season me with that much salt. You're already here. What is your favorite topics to talk about on the podcast? And I'll start with you, Gemma.
Okay. Well, I was just going to very quickly, because I forgot that I didn't actually tell you where the podcast, the podcast name means.
Yeah.
So obviously talking, everybody knows what that means, but codswallop is a British term for, the PG version is rubbish or poo or the explicit word. And we are, and I kind of thought that when I put the two together, it just made me giggle. So that's why, and being a comedy podcast, I thought that makes me laugh. So, that's why I did that. But
I love it.
Now I've forgotten your question this time.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. What is your favorite topic to talk about on your show? My favorite topics.
It varies because, to be honest, we're not. We kind of plan stuff, but we don't plan stuff. So we're kind of like very spontaneous with how we do our podcast. It's more about catching up with one another so that it's almost like you're a friend, like the listener or the salty tadpoles as they're called. They
It's great. I love wordplay. It's excellent. It's excellent.
Explaining that to some people is terrifying. Or others who straight out just go, "You called what?" And they know what it is. They go, "You called what? You named your listeners what?"
And
I'm like, they wanted that though. They chose that as a name because that we put it out as a vote to them.
And like I always like to point out as well is that we are all made of salty tadpoles.
Not wrong.
Not wrong.
How true it is. Nice.
So, I mean, I kind of do quite enjoy the codswallop side. So when we have a little moan about stuff, because we always have the good old moan about things, but then we try and make each other laugh. Or, I mean, if it's a serious subject, we'll treat it seriously. But for the most part, they are pretty first world problems, and we intend it to be that way. So if there's anything that's like real life codswallop, then that one doesn't ever go into it, kind of thing. It might touch upon it, but I quite like it when if we got multiple people, and I quite like it when we play the games. I don't know how James feels about that, but I like creating them. So there's one that's called Reverse That Tune. Okay. So I take a bit of audio and I flip it, and then whoever, I play it, and then the people try and guess what the song is.
Oh, that sounds...
who the artist is.
That does.
I don't remember the last time we played that. I just, for some reason, I can't remember who won and lost on the last time. Spoiler alert, I lost badly.
Yeah, James, I'm sitting there looking at you. I'm like, you took that L.
I got whipped. I got whipped. I mean, I absolutely whooped Census on that one. But hats off to Andy. He did very well and won. So, yeah.
He did incredibly well. And what I did for him as well, because obviously in the background, he's been a lot of help with regards to like any IT problems that James has had and created problems for me. And
no, really. For those wondering, IT problems, we lost complete access to our folders.
No, you.
Oh, you lost access to my folders. See,
trying to pass the buck.
You will notice something between the way Gemma and I are when it comes to conversing about stuff. She's my podcast wife, so basically we're like a married couple who argue.
We are.
I'm with it. It's dope. It's dope. But I think that game sounds like a lot of fun, Gemma. Anytime there's trivia and somebody's trying to guess something that will ultimately humiliate themselves, I'm all in. That stuff is awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love it.
And also the other thing as well is that we kind of bring stories of the week at the end of the show as well. And we always find the weird ones, the really ones that we can get our teeth into and like have a giggle about as well. Some of those have been absolutely hilarious.
Terrifying.
And terrifying, yeah. But it's like our interpretation of the story. We're not fans of the Metro because they don't write very well, which is a local newspaper that is on the London Tube.
Okay.
So it's it's on.
Wait, what's
online
it called
as well.
again? Backtrib?
No, the Metro.
The Metro. Okay. Ours is different. But yeah, no.
They have a habit. The problem they have is, Dre, they have a habit of they will have a story and they literally will abruptly bring it to a halt. So there's no real... It's just like, and that happened, boom, done, finished. And I will spend a lot of time when I'm reading these, basically admonishing and saying how awful the Metro is, and generally saying that whoever wrote this article should be ashamed of themselves.
I'm
a harsh critic.
I'm with it.
I was thinking, oh, sorry. I do apologise. I keep cutting on in front of everybody.
Please.
Yeah. I've got so much to say and not enough time to say it. No, I was also thinking of contacting, I nearly said a naughty word by accident then. Contacting the Metro and seeing, if we could advertise in their newspaper just as a joke, because it would be so funny. But obviously if it cost money, it would be a different story because we can't afford it. But it would be kind of ironic to actually advertise our podcast in a newspaper that we rip into very often.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah, I think the problem is, Gemma, if we contacted the Metro, they probably run some sort of hate campaign against me. So I don't think it's such a good idea.
It's
James,
all press.
There's no such thing as bad press, baby. Roll with it. That's dope. I like that. That idea is good. That's good to do. All right, what about you, James? What's your favorite topics to talk about on your podcast?
For me, it's the stuff when Gemma was kind enough to let me sort of roll with my own thing where I discuss films, do film and TV reviews, and also the fact that, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, when I've been able to talk to people who worked in, say, films, music, that have meant something to me. I've had the ability to learn more about them and make contact with them. I do like the fact that we have the ability to exercise what's annoying us. Like, Gemma was saying, that our codswallop, the stuff that's got to us. Other than sort of doing the film stuff, there's probably no one thing that I absolutely really, really love overall, because it's just, I like the experience of doing it as a whole. So just getting onto the podcast and doing it is something I enjoy. I do like discussing ghost stories, particularly my ghost story, but for some reason I've been banned by Gemma from repeating that one. Don't know why, but no, it's because I have repeated it a few times, the supernatural experiences I've had, and in fact, no, I think it's more than that, Gemma. Let's get real. When I spoke to Anthony and Claire Bueno, who did the Ghostbusters documentary, they begged Gemma to allow me to keep my story in.
Oh my God.
But yeah.
No, to be honest, that one had relevance, so I let it go.
Yes. She's a harsh mistress. Well, she's the wife. The mistress is even harsher, Joanne. So.
Always is. Always is. But that's dope. That's really dope. I love the fact that you both come with a different favorite aspect of the show. It shows I love to see versatility, and that is cool. Like Gemma has this spontaneous, high energy, fun explosion, and James, you have this analytical yet philosophical-esque vibe to it, and it comes together and makes. Wait, y'all have parfaits over there, right? Y'all have parfaits?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, yeah. So you got those different layers of, like, if it's ice cream or cake or lemon or whatever the case may be, it's layered like that, and that's dope. That's dope. I like all that. I like all that. Okay, my final question. All right. You don't have to say me for the sake of argument. Who has been your favorite person to interview on your show? James is thinking. He's in deep thought. You see that? That's how you know it's happening. That deep thought. Well, Jimmy, if you have yours, lay it on me.
I have, yeah, other than yourself, because obviously you were a fantastic guest, but unfortunately not quite the favourite. Sorry about that, but I'm sure we're your favourite guests. But no, I actually recorded an episode. It was just me at the time, because it was episode 5 with Ralph Garman. Do you know who Ralph Garman is?
Not by name.
Frank Garman, yeah. No, he. No, we'll make it simple.
Okay.
But yes, he is. Well, first of all, he's a voiceover actor on Family Guy.
Okay.
So yeah, he's not like one of the main parts. He's like sort of the background people.
Okay.
And he's also, do you know Kevin Smith?
Oh, yes.
I do.
Yes.
Yeah, they've got a podcast together called Hollywood Babylon.
Okay.
Yeah, and he does like all different voices, and he's sort of in charge of that show. But he's also started up the Ralph Report as well, which was about 4 years ago as well. So to have him at episode 5 was just a massive achievement and, you know, brilliant experience for me, basically, because what had happened is that I'd helped him promote his his Patreon podcast that he was doing, the Ralph Report, and he said to sort of repay the favor, he was going to come on and do the show with me, which was absolutely amazing. I was so nervous at the time, and the audio is okay. I wish to get him back on again as well, so that, like, because I know James likes him as well, so it would be lovely to get him back on. But yeah,
that's
it was
awesome.
Yeah,
I like that.
And Jimmy, you've met him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I've met him
in
as
person.
well.
Like, met him in person?
Yeah. Yes.
Sweet.
Yeah. I went to there was like a little, because I'm part of this Patreon that you did, and he was over in the UK at the time, and he came to London, and we all met up in a hotel when we all had drinks with him.
That's dope.
Yeah, he's such a nice guy. So yeah,
that's
it's
awesome.
Don't meet your heroes, but definitely you can meet some.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're gushing, Gemma. You're gushing. Look at you. That's what's up. That sounds like an awesome experience. That is tremendous. I'm so happy to hear that. That's great. Yeah. That's great. All right, James, you put a lot of thought into it. Who was your top?
It's tough. It is very tough. But because I've actually, all the people I've met and I've interviewed have meant a lot to me, and a lot of them have been people from my youth, and people that I've managed to get in contact with. Well, probably from an interesting emotional standpoint, I interviewed somebody called Neil Innes, who was a musician and actor. Neil would be, if you don't know him, he was in a group called the Ruttles, which was like a kind of take on the Beatles. He was also he was one of the members of Monty Python. He did work with the Beatles on Magical Mystery Tour, and he had this incredible back catalogue of music. And where it means a lot to me is that it was kind of like a complete fluke that I got to actually interview him, because I went to see the Ruttles, which was his band who was like the Beatles, who were performing. But prior to that, it was something my father and I went to, and my dad had said, why don't you try interviewing him for your podcast? It could be really good. And I thought, it's not going to happen, not going to be possible. Long story short, I reached out to him on Twitter. He responded, which amazed me, and just said, yeah, meet me before the show. We can have an interview. So long story short, it took a while to go and actually see him do the interview, but we did it. He let me interview him. He spoke to my dad. He was an incredibly nice man. And the thing of being with him is when you work, you can tell you're with somebody who is intelligent, like genius level intelligent, freakishly smart. Where it means an awful lot to me is the fact that he was incredibly nice and giving to me and my father. But it's one of the last interviews he did before he died. I was probably one of his last ever interviews. And it just, that means a hell of a lot to me, an awful lot to me. And he died rather suddenly around Christmas time. I think it was about 2 years ago now. And I think, out of all the people, because it would be one of his last interviews, and he was just such a nice, amazing person to be around. That they're all important to me, but that one does have a special place in my heart. So it's a big one.
Yeah, big time. That's wow. That's wow. Okay, got me in my feels there, James. Got me in my feels. I gotta loosen up a little bit. But man, that's tremendous. I'm so glad you got that opportunity to speak with him and spend that type of time with him before his passing. Because I think those are the type of moments in life and in careers or what have you that define who we are. When we actually sit down with people that we looked at as our heroes, or people that we looked up to, or people that engaged in certain things that influenced our childhood, that helped us develop as people, straight up and down. And I think that is that is touching. That's a really good one, James. That's a good one. So Gemma and James, both of your tops are tremendous. They're both tremendous. I can see why I was a close second in both of your lists. I understand. I get it now. But anyway, no, that's awesome. Thank you so very much for sharing your stories, sharing your amazing podcast with us. So tell us, where can we find your podcast?
Do you want me to take this, James, or okay, cool.
I want someone. We got to make sure it's done right. So you go to the organ grinder, not the monkey.
Fair enough. I'll do it then. Well, we tried to make it as simple as possible with regards to social media. So Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook is at Codswallop Pod. So that's CODSWALLOP and then POD for podcast. Then our hosting site with regards to where we actually release the episode is Podbean. So you can find us on there, either there, Apple Podcasts, and basically we're on everywhere that you can find podcasts, really, apart from SoundCloud, because SoundCloud costs a lot more. And, we're an indie podcast. We can't afford it. So
makes sense.
Yeah, so, but it would be absolutely lovely, if anybody sort of could come across and sort of subscribe to the podcast. That would be absolutely amazing. And especially if you're there to have a good old laugh, because we do have a laugh. We always pretty much have a good old giggle. I mean, some episodes have to be serious. Like last week's episode, I recorded with a friend of mine who had just had cancer. And, it was important to get his story out there. Yeah. So, we discussed what happened with him and whatnot. But again, he was also very funny. So it was, it was also a comedy episode as well. But the other thing is that we're on YouTube as well, which hopefully me and James might be doing something a little bit more with YouTube. But I haven't spoken to James yet about it, so we've got to keep it.
Well, I'll really have to cover the red Coke. I mean, cold nose Coke.
And I'll have to cover the skinned hamster.
I want to piss off the
my fluffy
people.
muff.
Oh my
god! So pretty much that's where you can find us. So just head on over. That would be absolutely amazing, because we are always looking to grow, and talking Codswallop isn't just a saying, it's a way of life, folks. So let's get on board.
Ooh, I like all that. So I'm going to leave all of those great links in the description section below of this video. So
thank you.
I would like to thank Gemma and James for coming on to the Indie Corner. Thank you so very much for you guys and making the time to come on.
Oh, well, thank you for having us.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. Everybody, check out the Talking Codswallop podcast. I see nods of approval. I said it right.
Yeah. Perfect.
Check out the podcast. Subscribe to their podcast as well. They're great people. They're doing tremendous work. They're funny. They're hilarious. And look, if you can get me laughing, you already know I'm always down with that. So
Yeah.
definitely follow them on all their dope social media platforms. And you already know who I am. I'm Dre the Brew Daniels. Follow me on all my dope social media platforms that you'll see over there. No, here, but put it over here. Put it over here this time at the Root00 on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, actually on TikTok at this point. Anywhere, follow me there. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. You all have been tremendous, and I will catch you all next time. Also, if you want to support my channel, check out spinwiz.com or download the SpinWiz app and check out my comic series, Trouble. It was written with a lot of love, and it was definitely my favorite comic series to write. I've also written it in English and in Spanish, so whatever floats your boat, I got it for you. Thanks again, and check it out.